article called The Mystery Schools on a website called Hidden Temple. A lot of times you hear about the mystery schools, this, the mystery schools, that, and I wanted to find an article that explained them. I was looking for one from a Christian perspective, but I came across this one from an insider's perspective, and I thought, well, this was very interesting. So, The Mystery Schools, Part 1, by John Darrell Rue. Quote, "Because of this element of secrecy, we are ill-informed as to the beliefs and practices of the various mystery faiths. We know that they had a general likeness to one another." Unquote. Ernest William Barnes. In ancient pre-axial age cultures, from ancient Egypt to the British Isles to Vedic India and the Himalayas to South America, Chaldea, Sumeria, ancient Greece, Babylon, and others, there were esoteric traditions of initiation that guided men and women to awaken as souls, then to awaken as the One, and then to embody that on earth. These traditions of initiation were the mystery schools. The pyramids of ancient Egypt and South America, the henges of the British Isles, the sanctuaries of ancient Greece and Rome, as well as the ancient monuments of many other parts of the world were temples and sanctuaries in which some of the rituals of initiation took place. The mysteries played a central role in ancient cultures as pathways of self-development, transformation, and awakening through which many of those who would go on to play significant roles in society would pass. Indeed, we know that figures such as Herodotus, Pythagoras, and Plato were initiates of the ancient Egyptian mysteries. It was the oath of all who participated in them to remain silent about what they experienced. Indeed, in many cultures, this oath was punishable by death. The Lesser and Greater Mysteries. Quote, "The ultimate design of the mysteries was to lead us back to the principles from which we descended. A perfect enjoyment of intellectual good." Plato. The mysteries were the transformational highways for the initiates of the ancient world and were available to the elite of society who were deemed developmentally equipped to participate in them. Their central focus was on first initiating individuals into the esoteric teachings concerning our deeper nature as souls in an essentially spiritual process of collective evolution. Pause. I think that's what's happening in the world today. Unpause. Esoteric cosmology, purification, and then on actually awakening as a soul, a fragment of the One, and embodying that in empowered service in the world. In the writings of ancient historians and from the esoteric teachings, we know the mysteries were divided into the lesser and the greater mysteries. The rituals, ceremonies, and initiations related to these were conducted each year at a particular astrologically determined times. The lesser mysteries focused on an individual's entry onto the path, study, discipline, dedication, and emotional and physical purification. This would allow them to set the foundation to later move into the transformational process of awakening and embodiment that were the focus of the greater mysteries. Pause. I'm just guessing that embodiment. I think that kind of means like spiritual possession, maybe. In his Eleusinian and Bacchic mysteries, Thomas Taylor writes, "The lesser mysteries were designed by the ancient theologists, their founders, to signify occultly the condition of the unpurified soul invested with an earthly body and enveloped in a material and physical nature." And from the Mystery Schools by Grace K. Knock. In Greece and Rome, nearly all the great men of historic note were initiates of one or more degrees of the lesser mysteries. This did not pertain to murderers or conquerors by the sword, for almost universally these were not initiates of the mysteries, although in the declining days of the Roman Empire many applicants of indifferent caliber underwent the introductory rites in a more or less perfunctory fashion. The greater mysteries focused on experiential awakening as a soul, a ray of the one light, what it meant to embody that in daily life in service to one's culture and society, the full transfiguration of the being in the light of the divine to emerge as a master. This section of the path was participated in only by those who were deemed developmentally worthy, those who had the heart, intelligence, courage, maturity, and consciousness to be able to receive, awaken to, and embody the deepest teachings available on the nature of the soul and ultimate reality. The solar and lunar mysteries. Within the teachings of the mystery schools, there were the solar and lunar mysteries. The solar mysteries were the initiations of ascent. They were about awakening as journeying spiritual beings, as souls, expressions of the absolute one. The lunar mysteries were the initiations of descent. They were about journeying so deeply into the mysteries of matter, the body, sexuality, and emotions, that the essential divinity, that is, the core of every layer of our being, even the most embodied, was revealed. The solar mysteries were generally the domain of the masculine, guided by communities of initiate priests. Examples of the stories of Osiris and Horus in ancient Egypt, of Krishna and Rama in Vedic India, of Quetzalcoatl in Aztec Mesoamerica, and of all the dying and rising gods in ancient mythology that stand for the divine aspect of our own being that dies as it comes into incarnation in a physical body, and eventually, after enough suffering and purification, rises again to stand as a god or goddess on earth. The lunar mysteries were generally the domain of the feminine, guided by cults of initiate priestesses. Examples are those of Isis and Hathor in ancient Egypt, of Inanna in ancient Sumeria, the goddess worship of pre-Vedic and Vedic India, or Demeter and Persephone in ancient Greece. A masculine example of the lunar mysteries would be the ecstatic rituals of Dionysus in ancient Greece or Bacchus in ancient Rome. The initiations of the mystery schools. The focus on death present in the mystery schools deserves mention here. In modern culture, it is often understood that the focus of the ancient mysteries was attaining life after death. Examples of this belief are found in how many of the ancient temples and sanctuaries, such as the pyramids of Egypt and South America, or the temples of ancient Greece, are understood as tombs. This is based on a misunderstanding of the esoteric teaching. In the teaching of the mystery schools and the ageless wisdom, they represent the incarnation of the soul in the physical body, is understood as death. For as long as a soul journeys asleep in life prior to awakening, it is understood as death because as a soul incarnates and comes into the body, those who are not established in awakening forget and seemingly lose all connection with the true knowledge of our being as divine and united with the one. In parentheses, one crosses the river Styx, or the river of forgetfulness, as in ancient Greek mythology. The life after death pointed to in the mystery schools is not another life after the death of the body, but rather the awakening of the soul whilst in the body. The ageless wisdom teachings tells us that on this path there were a series of initiations that men and women passed through in the ancient mystery schools, leading from and to: number 1, a neophyte's first recognition of themselves as a soul, a fragment of the one, and their entry onto the path. Number 2, the processes of purification, testing, and cleansing necessary to embody their true divine nature. Number 3, an eventual transfiguration of their being with the light of God and their establishment of their embodiment of soul. Number 4, their reunification of all that limits their expression as the one. Number 5, their full embodiment and mastery as the one. The first 2 of these were the focus of the lesser mysteries. The final 3 were the focus of the greater. Obviously, far fewer individuals passed through the latter than did the former. The demise of the mysteries. With the advent of the axial age, the mysteries, once a core part of ancient cultures, started to both be enacted openly in front of humanity as a whole, and simultaneously became so persecuted that they either died out or went underground. As an example of this, in 396 AD, the last sanctuaries or houses of the mysteries from the Greco-Roman world were wiped out as Christians fighting under Alaric, king of the Goths, destroyed the old sites. Coincident with this demise was the emergence onto the world stage of a number of extraordinary masters whose lives revealed the awakening at the core of the mystery schools to humanity as a whole through their embodiment of it. And so came forth Buddha, Plato, Confucius, Lao Tse, and Jesus, the founders of what would go on to become some of the world's major religions. The traditions and pathways they founded made the path of awakening available to those able to access the esoteric cores of the different religions. This was so long as those esoteric cores, where the transformational practices and teachings of the traditions are held, remained intact and were allowed to exist and function in their respective cultures. Of course, there are a number of examples where the culture or even the tradition became actively hostile to the esoteric teachings, practices, and practitioners. One example is Christianity, where at a very early stage, the Gnostic teachings on transformation, awakening, and the mystical significance of Jesus' life for all who walk the path were branded as heresy. No kidding. Indeed, what the Gnostics and those familiar with the path of initiation taught in the mystery schools understood was that in the 5 major events of Jesus' life, birth, baptism, transfiguration, crucifixion, and ascension, he enacted the 5 initiations that embodied the core of the mysteries, particularly the solar form, for all humanity to see. In doing so, he took the path of awakening into union with the divine and mastery on earth, which formed the deepest levels of the mystery schools to humanity as a whole. This is their perspective of the Gnostic Jesus. Schwaller de Lubix, a scholar of the mysticism and temple architecture of ancient Egypt, has suggested that in the ancient Egyptian sages' reading of the stars, which the zodiac on a temple ceiling at Dendera shows, they had information for 3 precessions of the equinoxes, which that is roughly 78,000 years. They foresaw this. He suggests that as the birth of the common era drew closer, they knew the end of their civilization was coming, and that the mysteries that had been the focus of exploration for an initiate elite at the center of their culture would be taken to humanity as a whole. That's like the externalization of the hierarchy, I think. Yes. Hence them opening the doors to allow the Greeks entry into participating in their mystery schools such as Pythagoras, Plato, and Herodotus, something that had previously not been the case. Sadly, in the early politicization of Christianity, particularly by the Emperor Constantine, many of the more esoteric truths embodied in Jesus' life became co-opted into a system of social domination and control. Pause. This is not true. The early Christian church, the apostles, and the early church fathers were fighting against the Gnostics from the very beginning. Unpause. At the Council of Nicaea 325 AD, Jesus was figured to be a God incarnate rather than a man who had awakened to God. With this, the possibility for all human beings who came into contact with the gospel to know it as their birthright, to walk the same path, became significantly occluded. Just as the forces of awakening and light have always been present on our planet, so also have the forces that seek to hide and distort that light. Wow. Just remember, we're reading this from a perspective of somebody who is in the mystery schools. And I hear echoes of Bill Johnson right now.
I ended up just addicted to what? Addicted
Jesus, he walked and lived as a man. And he didn't live as God on the earth. Jesus is born of the Virgin Mary. He is born as a man. He's not born as God. He is born as a man. He's not born as God. He is born as a man. He's not born as God. He's God's son, but he had to do what he did as a man in order to make me right with him.
The reality of this thing is that Jesus Christ, he pays a price for us to be made right with God. Jesus goes to hell. Jesus goes to hell.
Jesus goes to hell.
I believe he went to Hades, he went down and descended into the depths of the earth for 3 days, and he pays for the sin of mankind. But on the third day, he got the keys to both hell, death, and the grave. Got those keys, came up out of there, was risen.
One born again human being defeated all of hell.
God.
You don't have a God in you. You are one.
Mystical Masonry, page 86. Man attains divinity. In other words, he becomes Christos. The perfect man is Christ, and Christ is God. This is the birthright and destiny of every human soul. The mysteries go underground. Freemasonry. While the essence of the solar mysteries was being openly enacted in the life of such figures as Jesus and Gautama Buddha, the forms, symbolism, and ceremonies that embodied the physical rituals in which the esoteric truths of reality and our being could be enacted and remembered went underground. While humanity evolved in consciousness, culture, and society under the influence of the major religions, from tribes to feudal empires to nation-states, the rituals and symbolism of the mysteries were kept alive by secret societies such as the Templars and Freemasons in the West. Indeed, just as many of those who participated in the ancient mysteries went on to play significant roles in stewarding social and cultural evolution in their respective societies, so also is this the case in relation to Freemasonry. Many of those who have played huge roles in the West have been Freemasons, including a number of American presidents: George Washington, James Monroe, Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt, and Harry S. Truman. It is true that the Masonic order has struggled to maintain the purity of ideals and embodied action that are embedded in its ancient roots, and yet there have been many fellows of the craft that have embodied those ideals, which are the very same as those of the ancient mystery schools. To awaken, to know oneself as an expression of the Godhead, to embody that in daily life, and to serve the evolution of humanity. The ancient monuments and architecture previously mentioned, such as the pyramids and obelisks of Egypt and South America, the henges of the British Isles, the Nazca lines of Peru, and many others, have also continued to stand as landmarks of the ancient mystery schools, shrouded in enigma as to what they truly are still to this day. Conclusion. Over the course of the last 2,000 years, while humanity as a whole has had the chance to develop and grow in consciousness, culture, technology, science, infrastructure, and in many other ways into the global interconnected society we have today, the mysteries remained in the background. It is the position of the ageless wisdom teachings that I have spent time with that in our current times and the impending future, a re-emergence is unfolding. Ding, ding, ding. These teachings suggest that now a new, updated form of the mystery schools, one that can once again establish centers around the world that can act as superhighways of transformation and awakening for those of humanity who are ready and who can go on to play significant roles in the governance and guidance of a now global culture, is on the verge of manifesting again. This will be the focus of part 2. I could not find part 2. This is very interesting. A lot of us already know about the mystery schools and the Freemasons and how they've been hiding their secrets since times of Egypt and just keeping the control on the world from behind the scenes, all that stuff. But I am saying, in my opinion, it's a hypothesis that these ageless wisdom teachings and these mystery schools that are going to reemerge, some of them are churches. Yes. Some of these supernatural training schools, I think this is what they are doing. And you also have the Academy of Divine Knowledge or whatever, which is a really outwardly new agey. We have some churches and movements that are not, they are outwardly new agey, but they don't admit it. They're pretending. So I'm on another page on this website called Mercury Transmissions. I read this morning. It's very interesting. This is channeled material. If you're sensitive to that, maybe skip this part. It's only a few paragraphs, but it's very eye-opening. These writings, videos, podcasts record a process of receiving impressions, telepathic guidance from the world soul via a being known as the Tibetan Master Zhual Kul. Oh, I know him. That's Alice Bailey's, guide. While written in the language of the trans-Himalayan tradition, they are accessible to those whose intuition is active and whose heart is responsive to the spirit of the times. This first stage ran from 2001 to 2005, transmitted to a group anchoring a mystery school at Haydn Temple in New Zealand. They can be found here. Don't go there. The second stage began after a return to Haydn and the reactivation of the temple in 2017. They cover the period from March through August of 2020 and form part of an experiment in group initiation designed to prepare for 2025, when a major inflow of energy known as the Shambhala impact is expected to occur. An experiment in group initiation. In 2020. The decade from 2020 to 2030 is presented as a critical transition period for humanity. No kidding. The reappearance of the mystery schools as nurseries for new civilization and leadership coincides with a mass initiation being undergone by humanity as a whole. Wow. What do you think of that? I've been thinking that, and I've seen other people talking about all the things that have been going on for a long time, but especially in 2020, it was kind of a mass initiation. And I also do believe that in the example that I just had in the video I did about astral projection, I feel that the people in the church, or people that are going to some of these types of churches, are actually being initiated into this mystery school initiation stuff without their knowledge. They're presenting it as a move of the spirit, that they're literally initiating you and taking you through different steps and putting you through different spiritual encounters. Okay, sorry. The emphasis of these teachings is planetary initiation. And this is a good time to show that David Spangler quote about planetary initiation. They contain a great deal of new information on the life principle, monadic contact, black holes, planetary kundalini, and global psychology. Their aim is to provide a working manual for planetary life and its cosmic origin. At the end of this series of transmissions, an opportunity is given to apply these teachings in a deeper experiential journey for those called. This is so satanic. Okay, this is this transmission from Joao Cool. So, let's pray. Dear Jesus, please protect us and keep us. Quote, will you carry the weight of the world? Will your heart hold steady as the arrows arrive? Tension is the way of this approach. Tension that increases like the tuning of a string until it is taut and humming with life. Will you let your heart sing with that tension? Will you bear the burden? Will you offer your life to life? I ask you these questions because I seek your consent. Will you? No! Those who carry the weight do not have time for understanding the way. Their hearts feel the need and they respond with their whole being. This is purity. To wield the will, there must be no separation. One current of life, one dark river of being. Ew. I'm going to go back and repeat this one phrase. Those who carry the weight do not have time for understanding the way. What? Like turn off your brain so you don't understand and you're just doing it? Those I call do not need explanations or enticements. They know in the heart that they are already given. It is a relief to offer themselves without reservation. Indeed, they have been awaiting just such a call. They know that it is life itself calling them through the field of tension that this ashram is holding. It requires the full and immediate commitment of all their resources unequivocally. Consider how much vulnerability there is in this approach. No reserves, no fallback options, no room to maneuver. This is not a path of cleverness, but a path of daring. When we have nothing left, there is yet the will. The will shall suffice. The will shall be reinforced. The will of the Lord of the world. Hello, the will of the Lord of the world is a mighty ally. One trickle of daring arising out of a pure heart may call forth a river of life. A dark river? Does this call thrill you? No. Does it thrum in your heart, straighten your spine, and bring you to the edge of the abyss? It's telling you right here, the edge of the abyss. Then move to power. Move towards the dark current of life. Invoke the lightning with your daring. Stand up for the greater good in whatever field you find yourself. Call down the aid of the ashram with you vertically. I offer you the power of the living word. We have offered our help to all who call with pure motive in this time between worlds. Ask with your life. Lay the offering of your heart on the altar of sacrifice. Wow, that's sick. Shambhala is. The solid ground of being is all around you. Fidelity is simply a return to your core. Let everything fall except what truly matters now. Yikes. Okay, I thought I was done with this website, but then I just checked out this temple training. Just curious, what? What is this? A lady with a sword and a big shining light. What's up with the sword? The temple training. The temple training is a soul initiation for pioneers of the heart. I'm not going to read all this. It's weird. This training is the deepest and most integrated soul initiation process I'm aware of in the world, focusing on what it means to truly embody your soul in community with others and in connection with the earth and cosmos. It's all sounding very Alice Bailey-ish, isn't it? Oh, and here's a guy with another sword. It's very lovely. I'll just read a little bit. Awareness, meditation, cosmology, astrology, rayology, soul fusion, the void, life force activation. When you hear activation, Christian, run. Community, love, and relationship, group soul and group initiation. Shamanism, earth energies, working with divas. Divas. Planetary kundalini, initiations and ceremonies. And these are just guides. The real curriculum is the living current of life force emerging through each of us and between us as love reveals to us its next great unfoldment in planetary evolution and group transmission. Something about those swords, what do they remind me of? Now here we have Bill Johnson and Chris Valentin knighting the graduates of Christian Hogwarts, or otherwise known as Bethel School for Supernatural Ministries. If this seems far-fetched, that there's a connection between all these, maybe check out my last video where Bob Jones is leading people into astral projection at Bethel Church. And I have a couple other videos in my playlist that expose some of the occult practices that they're known for. And when you add that to their doctrine of Jesus wasn't born as God, he was just a man in the right relationship with God, it sort of seems to match the Gnostic view of the guy that wrote this article. And it's also the same as what Freemasons teach. And here is a knighting ceremony for Knights Templar, which is also similar to Knights of Malta. And I also have a video about Rick Joyner, Knight of Malta. He's another 7 Mountain Prophet guy. Mountain Prophet. And a couple of other fun facts about the Templars while we're comparing them. They're credited with bringing the Kabbalah to Europe when they found it in Jerusalem. And they're also were accused of worshiping the Baphomet. So they're not really a Christian organization, more of an occult organization pretending to be a Christian organization. So this seems familiar.
Arise, Brother Knight. Receive the cross of the order. Receive the mantle of the order.
That's funny because I hear a lot about mantles, receiving mantles in the Bethel people and the mountain people, the NAR. It's just funny.
That settles it! Walk away. Just ignore them.
Run.
There's just one name that can keep you out of hell, and it's the name of Jesus. The name of Jesus.